Today, we continue to work on our snake game clone. Last time we worked on the player snake and handling its movement. Today's episode is all about food. We would like to spawn the food, detect when the snake collides with the food, and grow the snake. I guess we can get started. And first thing that I would like to address is something that probably should have been part of the previous episode, and it's all about the visited tile. Now we would like to somehow show on the grid that our snake has visited a particular tile. We even have a tile state for that, but we never actually marked anything as visited. So that is what we're going to do first. To do that, we will introduce a new field for the tile, which says bool visited. Next thing, whenever we initialize our tile, we can say that every single tile is not visited yet. Next, we need to find where we need to mark those tiles as visited, and it is done during the snake mark tiles. So whenever we are marking that the tile is currently occupied by our snake, we can also say that, hey, this tile is visited. And if we run our game, nothing actually changes, even though it seems that we're doing everything that is needed. But the thing is that every single frame we're running this update tile grid, which cleans everything up and sets the state to empty tile. This is the exact spot where we need to say that, hey, if my tile is actually visited, I would like to default to visited tile and otherwise to empty tile. Both of these states, they represent an empty tile. It's just this state represents that it hasn't been visited yet, and this state represents that, hey, this tile has been visited. And now whenever our snake runs, we can see that our visited tiles are saved and being redrawn correctly. So that's about it. And now we can start working on our food. First things first, we need to define new structure for our food. Food is really just a position and again some value, which is tile state. So whenever the food is being marked on the grid, it will place some particular tile state. We need to introduce new tile state, which is food tile, and then whenever we join the tile with this tile state, we need to handle the new food tile as well. And let's start with something like simply super green. Now again, nothing changes just because we introduced new struct for food, but it's not in our game yet. So let's say that because there can only be one food present at a time, we can simply say that, hey, game state, please hold the food yourself. So we need to probably go to init our game and say that InitFood, given game food. First we need to say that, hey, my value is simply food tile, right? Something that we introduced. And next we need to set some position, right? Some random position. But you can also see that every time we eat the food, right, this food that we store in our game state will simply change its position. So we can have it as a separate function that is going to be called in this InitFood method, and also outside of it whenever we handle the snake food collision. So let me do something like place food randomly. Let's name it like that. We can have this function place food randomly, given some food reference or pointer to our food. We can then think that, okay, we need to generate some row and some column. We can do that in a while loop, saying that, hey, our row is going to be some random, so it's a random integer divided, not divided, but the remainder of division by rows, and column is also another random remainder by columns. So this remainder, as you know, will return everything from 0 up to rows, not included. For columns, it's from 0 up to columns, not included. So this is exactly what we need, and we can tell that, hey, food position row is row, food position column is what we have generated. Now we need to understand like why we have while loop. Pretty much our food can be spawned anywhere on the grid, so that's what row and column rand does, but we don't want to spawn the food on top of our snake or on top of clone enemy snake whenever they appear. So we would like to spawn the food only on visited or empty tiles. And we can do that by simply checking this inside this while loop. So we can say that, hey, tile grid in this newly generated row column is equal to empty tile, or actually like not equal to empty tile, and game tile grid row column not equal to visited tile, except it has to be state. Right, so whenever we hit some different state, which is now like player tile, food tile, although that's probably most likely not possible, but any other state that we add here will retrigger this do loop and will generate another row column so that we can place our food inside a row column that is not yet occupied. This is of course a simplified randomization, because you can think of a grid which is, let's say, 90% filled in by the enemy snakes, and our snake is like pretty long at that point. So the amount of tiles that are empty is quite small, and the less of the amount of those empty tiles, the more iterations this while loop is going to make. So our game might actually start lagging at some point. For now this is fine, but for you as an exercise you can rewrite this thing, first collecting all the tiles that are applicable for food spawning, and then selecting one randomly from that list. Alright, so place food randomly, we're placing it in our init game, but once again there is nothing happening here. And it doesn't happen because our food is currently updated as data inside of game state, but it's never marked on our field the same way as we are marking the snake tiles. So we can say that, hey, let's introduce new function, food mark tile, given game food, it's a single tile. How do we mark it? We can pretty much say that let's find this tile, which is food position row, food position column, and then this tile state can be food value. And this is how we mark the food. And now when we run it, we can see this food present on our map. The thing is that we don't currently have any functionality to eat this food. So yeah, it's simply sitting there. If we rerun it, the food should appear in a different position, but it doesn't, and that happens because we haven't actually seeded our pseudo random generator. And we can do that by running srand during our startup. Time comes from time each, and if we run it again, you can see that, yeah, now randomization works. just fine. Get tile color, let's dim it down a bit, something to like 40-40 maybe, because otherwise it was super bright. All right, so let's try and eat the food. Where do we eat the food? Right? Because our position of the snake changes only during this step timer interval, so once per interval, this is exactly the place where we need to detect whether our head is colliding with the food. We can do that easily by saying position head is our game player, it's tiles 0. Right, again, because it's a pointer. And we can check that if head row equals to game food position row and head column is the same as foods column, it means that we're actually colliding with the food right now. So what we can do is just to test things out, we can say, all right, place food randomly given our game food. Right, so we don't do anything to our snake, we simply detect the collision and put the new food elsewhere. Yeah, you can see that it started to work. We are correctly detecting the exact time when our snake collides, and the new food is being spawned. So what we need to do now is we need to grow our snake, because that's how difficulty increases. And in our next episode, we will start spawning our enemy clones every single time we eat the food. Right, so we can say that, all right, please snake grow, given game player snake, and the function snake grow, which takes snake. How do we grow a snake? First of all, we need to know the length of current snake, so snake tiles, and we can take array length of that. We can now take position like last, let's say snake tiles at length -1, and push it to snake tiles array, pretty much copying the last tile. And this is the same as we start our snake. Whenever we init our snake, we are pushing, where was it? So init snake, we're simply pushing the same position into the tiles. So right now we are copying the last tile, and it will start moving once like our step logic applies. Let's see how that works. And it's working great. Right? You can see that our snake started to grow. Now, I believe there is one issue that I caught early on when I previously was researching this project, and I will try to show you right now, but for that we need to reduce the size of our grid so that the chances of showing you the issue is much higher. So I believe that right now the food can spawn on top of our snake, even though when we wrote the randomly placed food, we simply told that, hey, run this while loop while we're pretty much like while loop while we're trying to find an empty grid tile. But you already saw that if you paid attention that one of the foods was spawned on top of me, so contradicting to what the logic that we already wrote. and I will show you where the issue lies. Right now you saw that this particular food was spawned on top of us. Let's revert these changes first and think about what is going on. So pretty much every single frame we are first handling user's input, so it changes what direction the snake is going to take next. Then we're clearing, right? If you remember, we're clearing the whole grid. Then we make the snake step, but it is data only. Then we detect the collision with the food. Then we grow the snake and place the new food right here using place food randomly. But this function is actually relying on our grid already to be filled with all the other data that can be there. So it expects that those methods like marks, snake mark tiles, and in the future some snake clones mark tiles and so on, that they have already run it, so that the grid already contains all the tiles with its final states. But this is not true here. That is why at this particular point, when we're trying to place food randomly, our grid as a whole is empty and the food can be spawned anywhere. To somewhat easily circumvent the issue, we can keep track whether the food was eaten. Food was eaten, which is false. We can say that, hey, food was eaten is true, and we can do it right here. Like if food was eaten, right, then we can place food randomly and then mark the new food tile. So this way we're doing all the data related changes during this step and then start marking everything on the grid itself, although this also is a data change. And now I won't be restarting that. Whoa, something is definitely wrong. And the wrong thing is that we need to reset this flag, of course. All right, so when we eat the food, simply next is spawned and everything works as expected. So next time we are gonna introduce our clones, snake clones. We're gonna start tracking our path that we take, and every single clone is going to replay that path, which will make it more and more difficult to continue to collect the food. If you like this video, please press that like button. If you like this type of content and would like to see more of it, please do subscribe to this channel. This helps me immensely. Thank you very much. I'll see you again. Bye.